Hi there, it's Lisa Wilson with the Raw Food Institute. Listen, we just locally did a show at the Simsbury Inn and we decided to make it really fun and do 6 TED-style talks. We literally brought in 6 experts from right here in the Valley. We banged them out. They were 25 minutes or less and they are packed. I asked all of these local experts to pack this with local information. So you're going to get local experts on GMOs, you're going to get organic farming, you're going to get children's health, you're going to get local accomplished authors, you're going to get motivational speakers. It's an amazing series. We have such rich talent here in the Valley. It's kind of mind-numbing to be able to live here and to be friends with some of these people. So I'm sorry you missed it. If you didn't make our event, there were I think 80 people there. It was standing room only. We had a fantastic event. And we would love to see you at one of our future events. But until then, you can catch all of that, the whole series, right here on Simsbury TV. I hope to see you next time.
I want to dispel a myth that I'm an elite athlete, because I'm not. In fact, the last time I did the Hawaii Ironman, I was passed by a nun, a senior citizen, and a guy with 2 prosthetic legs. I'm serious. So I think people are cheering for me, and this guy with the 2 legs is coming by me, passing me. And I'm thinking, they should be cheering for me. His legs are made out of titanium. He's not even getting tired. November 8th, 2014, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, had a dozen egg whites, headed to the lake to be in the water by 3:30. The air temperature was 29 degrees, the water temperature was 52. I was scheduled to do a 4-hour swim. Most of it was going to be in the pitch black. My greatest concern that morning wasn't hypothermia. My greatest concern wasn't drowning. My greatest concern was swimming head-on into an aluminum rowboat that was there somewhere on the lake. You see, I couldn't see them. I knew that there were at least 2 fishermen on the water that day, simply because I learned to count the empty trailers that were in the parking lot. And one of the scariest things that I had was having to deal with that. My only hope was, because in the dark swims we wear those fluorescent gel sticks on the back of your swim cap with the hope that they may see you, and if you can't see them. Well, as it turned out, I got my 4-hour swim in. There were no hazards along the way. And at the end of my swim, I met a gentleman by the name of Mr. Armstrong, and he told me he was 72 years old. I'm thinking to myself, what idiot is out here fishing at 3:30 in the morning? Well, Mr. Armstrong, at 72 years old, went out, he said, most weekends and got in the water. At the end of my swim, we started to build a conversation, and he asked me, why are you out here? And I said to him, well, the reason why is when I go to England in July, we don't know when we're going to swim. We're on a 7-day call. And I could be getting a call at midnight telling me to be on the boat in 3 hours. That call may come at midnight. I have to be on the boat at 3 o'clock. So we're out there, I told him, to practice swimming in the dark, because swimming in the dark in the pitch black is very disorienting and you can get sick. So you train your body to adapt to it over time. And by the way, Lisa, I turned 60 in January, so I will be 60 when I do it. In fact, I thought I was doing really well, thinking that I was probably the oldest person that had done the English Channel, when I found out Matt Damon's uncle lives in Connecticut, 74 years old, and did it a few years ago. So this thing became really important to me to do. And as Mr. Armstrong asked me why I was there, and I explained to him about the darkness and how I was training in the darkness, he listened to me and he smiled and he said, no, why are you really out here? Why are you really out here, Doug? The words that left my mouth and filled my ears that day were words I didn't expect. I hadn't rehearsed them. I didn't know where they were coming from, but they were some of the most powerful words I heard myself speak in years. The words that came out of my mouth, I'm here, Mr. Armstrong, because it makes me feel vital. What a powerful word that is, because it makes me feel vital. You see, for all of us, oftentimes we sink into the rhythm and routine of life. We struggle with mortgage payments, how are we going to pay for the braces, where are the kids going to school, all of the things that make our lives, that daily routine, oftentimes the things that make us the most vital, oftentimes take the back burner. And that's what had happened to me over the last 20 years. I got married, there were a lot of wonderful things that happened, 3 beautiful children, and I took on the responsibilities of being a father, being a provider, and some of the things that were most important to me I started to lose sight of. And I know for each of you, again, the daily rhythm and routine, oftentimes those things that make you vital, you put on the back burner in favor of other things that are also important. I had lost that, and it really felt good over the last 2 years to reclaim a sense of vitality. I call it my vitality journey, and each one of us has one. I want to share some stories with you today. First of all, about what is vitality? Well, you can read the definition in the dictionary. One of my favorites is the capacity for the continuation of a meaningful or purposeful existence. How powerful is that? A vital person is someone whose aliveness and spirit are expressed not only in personal productivity and activity, but such individuals often infectiously energize those with whom they come in contact with. Those of you that have been at the Raw Foods Institute, I want you to know I haven't been able to do what you guys have done this week, but I've been telling you, I've been meditating on you, I've been praying on you, I've been thinking about you all week. I didn't have one cookie this week. If there's one thing I've learned today, man, I got to make some changes to my diet. But one of the cool things about swimming in the English Channel is, guess what? It's one of the few sports that you're encouraged to, guess what? Put on weight. And I've done a good job at that. My wife is also in this same business, and I'm starting to hear today what she's been preaching for many years. I want to share some stories with you of mentors that I've met that have changed my life. Not that you're going to be training for an Ironman, not that you're going to be training for the English Channel, but hopefully, I think that some of the lessons that we learn, some of them are universal, and I want to share those with you today in the hope that you may be able to listen between the lines and get something out of the stories that have affected my life. My journey in terms of really identifying what it means to have a vitality journey began in 1982. One of my favorite programs at that point in time was Wide World of Sports. You guys remember the show where the guy's coming down the ski ramp and, right? Some of you may have seen this video as well. It was the first time I'd ever seen the Ironman triathlon. For those of you that aren't aware of what the Ironman is, it's one of the more foolish things you can do at the beach. Combines a 2.4 mile ocean swim, 112 mile bike, and 26.2 mile run, and all in 90-degree heat and 90% humidity. I turned the television set on, and there was this woman by the name of Julie Moss. She was working on her master's thesis in exercise physiology, and one of the things that she had been tasked with was doing the Ironman. Julie led the women's division all day long. She got to mile 26, the last event of the day. She had 0.2 of a mile left to go, and her body said, "I've had enough." She dropped to the ground. She tried to regain enough energy to stand back up and make it happen again, and she fell back down. The person that was behind her, number 2, was closing in on her, and she stood up and she fell back down. Any of you see this by any chance when it happened, or you've seen it? It is cited as one of the biggest reasons why people entered the sport of triathlon, because they saw Julie drag herself across the finish line and people were in tears. If you read Julie's quote at the bottom, I'm not sure if you can see it, and all of a sudden, there's this voice that just said, "Get up." The reason why this became a powerful moment in my life, you see, every day you and I live in a world where we're getting knocked down, we're getting beat up. It's hard, man. It's hard sometimes. You're going to get knocked down. I want you to understand, we all understand that we each have seeds of doubt in terms of who we are and what we can accomplish. But we also have seeds of victory. We also have seeds of greatness. We also have seeds of, I can do anything. I want you, the next time you're in one of those places where you feel like you've been knocked down, I want you to understand. I want you to listen to that little voice that says, "Get up. You can do this thing. Get up." It's one of the most defining moments in my life. So I called my brother up, who's always been a big supporter of my athletic endeavors. And I said, "Brian, I saw this race on TV called the Ironman." "I saw it," he said. "I saw this woman. You should have seen her. She was crawling across the... I saw it," he said. "I want to do it," I said. He said, "We've got to keep you from reproducing." He said to me, Doug, you haven't even done a marathon. What makes you think you can do a 2.4-mile ocean swim, 112? I don't know. But there was something deep inside me, man, something that was telling me that's how I was going to find my vitality. I trained for 1.5 years for the Boston Marathon. At that point in time, they had what's called Bandits. Are you familiar with them? In Boston, they've always celebrated being a rebel. So even though you have to qualify to be on this side of the line, half of the race in Boston are Bandits, which means that you are in the race, but you're not qualified. You're not supposed to be there because you didn't make the time cutoffs. I'm a decent I was at that time, a decent 9-minute mile runner. A friend of mine that was living in New Hampshire, I trained together with college, was a much faster runner than me. We decided we were going to run the race together. And I thought he meant we were going to run at my pace. For the first 20 miles, instead of doing the 9-minute mile that I was qualified to do, I ran a 7:59 for 20 miles. At mile 20, I turned into Gumby. My legs started bowing out like that, and I told him, Phil, go on. I got to mile 26, and I had my Julie Moss moment. I had nothing left. You see, the cramps that I had in my quadriceps and in my hamstrings now had become so debilitating. You know, if you have a cramp in your hamstring, you stick your leg out like that, and it stretches out. But if you, at the exact same time, have a cramp in your quadriceps, it just locks that one up. Well, I had this going on both legs. I stood at mile 26 for 20 minutes, not knowing if I was going to be able to finish the race. There was a cop there. That's not me, but this is what it felt like. There was a cop there. There was a cop there at mile 26, and the guy tells me, you only have 0.2 miles left to go. And I'm thinking to myself, are you serious? Do you really think I don't know how much further I've gotten in this race? It became a powerful lesson for me after I thought about it. You see, he knew where I needed to get to. He didn't know where I'd come from. He didn't know the pain of my journey. He didn't know what I'd been exposed to. And see, folks, we walk around in life, oftentimes we expect others to completely understand our journey. And guess what? Let it be okay that they don't. But by the same token, understand that as we become experts on the lives of other people, that we may not know where they've come from. To support them on their journey, but not necessarily tell them the best way to get there. I finished the marathon that day in 3 hours and 57 minutes. It's a decent time, especially having stood for 20 minutes at mile 26. I stood there at the end of the finish, and I felt a sense of accomplishment, but I also felt a sense that there was no way I was ever going to be able to do the Ironman. There's just no way. For 6 months after that race, I didn't run again. I was blown up. 8 years later, a friend of mine called me up and she said, Doug, I know you did. Maybe it was 9 years later. I know you did the Boston Marathon. I'd like you to train me to do that. And I'm thinking, no way. I'm thinking to myself, but Tracy was cute. So I trained her. In April of that year, we stood up to the starting line. And instead of running my 9-minute pace, we ran a 10:20. I got to the end of the finish line, and I felt so much reserve capacity that I knew if I needed to, I could run back the 26 miles the other way. I honestly believe that. I had so much left over, and I learned something that day. I learned that running a race is a lot like life. Select the right pace. It's your race, it's your life. Select the right pace. I went out with my buddy. I had no business running an 8-minute mile. I went with my other friend and ran a 10:20, but my pace was somewhere in between. My point is, my life lesson on that is, you know what, we get so caught up. And because our neighbor's got a bigger house, a fancier car, better car, we get so caught up in running someone else's race. I want you to think about, it's your life, it's your race. Do it at your pace. 4 months later, I called a buddy of mine that was an elite marathoner from Boston. I said to him, Tommy, I'm thinking about running the Hawaii Ironman. He said, Doug, you've done 2 marathons in your life. You're not going to be able to do that. Most people train for 5 years to train for an Ironman. You have no business being out there. Well, one of the lessons that I learned years ago is go to people that have already achieved that which you want to achieve. And that's the mistake oftentimes we make in life. We go to the people that we care about, the people that are closest to us. We ask for advice in areas that they have no business really recommending to us. As it turned out, I found a woman. I was hoping she might be here today. Her name is Anne Marie DeMonte. She just turned 75. She's done 23 Ironmans. From Bloomfield, Connecticut. I called her up, and another woman from West Hartford named Dion Stewart. She had done 10 at that point in time, and I said to her, and I knew they were going to laugh at me. Hey, listen, I've only done 4 triathlons in my life. I'm thinking about doing Hawaii. And I knew they were going to laugh, and you know what they did? Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You're going to have to pace yourself because you've never done one before, but you can do it. I arrived at the Hawaii Ironman check-in office 2 weeks early, walked in. Guy looks at me. He said, what division are you in? I said, I don't know. It's the 4th race I've ever done. He looks me up and down. I'm thinking he's looking at my cleanly shaven legs. And he said, well, how much do you weigh? And I said, 225. Without a moment's hesitation, he said, oh, you're a Clydesdale. Now, you got to understand, the Hawaii Ironman is reserved for the best triathletes in the world. There are 2,000 athletes that descend on the full moon Saturday night in October, and these are the best of the best. However, 200 people are allowed in by lottery. You'll never guess how I got in. I had no business being there. I was a Clydesdale. And in the world of thoroughbred horses, I was a Clydesdale. I was a workhorse. People laughed. I left. And I got to tell you, the first thing that I felt was, dude, you don't belong here. You're not good enough. It was hard. Fortunately for me, a guy named Keith Albright saw this going on. He could see the dejection in my face. He comes out afterwards. He said, how you doing? I said, not so good. I realized even before I got here, I didn't really belong. He said, I don't belong either. This is the 5th time I've done it. He said, Doug, it's not a question in life whether there will be times when you don't feel good enough. It's not a question in life whether there are going to be times that you feel you don't belong. The question is, what will you do when you feel that way? He said to me, you're good enough. You're more than good enough. You're awesome. So with that vote of confidence, I did the race that year. In fact, I came back 2 years later. In 1995, when I did that race, the legendary Mamuku headwinds on the Queen Kamehameha Highway averaged 25 miles an hour with gusts up to 70. 15 athletes were blown off their bikes that day, but not one of them was a Clydesdale. You are good enough. Keith was one of these guys that changed my life, and here's the reason why. In 38 years old, I actually had abs. I was in the best shape of my life. The last event of the day is the marathon. I had made it to mile 24, and if I was going any slower, I'd have been going backwards. My friend Keith had just gotten off his bike when I was at mile 13 of the marathon. You don't need to know too much about marathon running to know if you've got a 13-mile head start in a 26-mile run, there's no way you're going to be caught. But it was late and I was tired. At mile 24, I heard the encouraging words, Doug, keep going, you're looking strong. It was my friend Keith. He had made up the distance. I said, there's no way I'm going to let this guy pass me and beat me. Well, sure enough, I did. That became a defining moment in my life, and here's the reason why. In 1993, I was 38 years old. My friend Keith was 69. Think about that. 2.4-mile ocean swim, 112-mile bike, 26.2-mile run. You see, he changed my world, and he flip-flopped it upside down because at 69, when I was 38 years old, guess what? That was an old guy. It was an old man. But somehow the game had changed for me, and the one step that it took him to pass me, it became a defining moment in my life. I saw Keith the day after the race, and he was bopping around like he had just gone out on a Sunday stroll. And when I tell you, it was a major effort for me to be able to pick my leg up and put it on a curb, it was. And I said to Keith, how is it possible? How is it possible that you could do that? He said it to me, it wasn't always possible. You see, I'd come home at the end of the business day, I'd sit on the couch, I'd watch TV, I'd open the mail, and I could feel my life being stolen from me. He said, I made the decision, and this is the key to life, he said, I made the decision that I need to make some changes. He said, Doug, the key to life is maintaining an active interest in your physical, your spiritual, and your emotional well-being. And the key, again, I want to repeat this, it is to maintain an active interest. You see, we're all good at maintaining a passive interest. We're all good going through the motions. He said the key to life is maintain an active interest. That's where vitality is found, by maintaining an active interest. I spoke to Keith yesterday. This video, and if you get it, I'm not going to play it right now. 86 years old, Mitchum's hardest working person in America. I want you to Google search this guy, because I'm telling you what, he was a life changer. At 86 years old, he rode his bicycle. He tuned as many as 14 pianos in the course of a day. But he would ride his bicycle to each one of his different customers. 86 years old. He's 91. I spoke to him yesterday. He called me from California. I asked him, what is it, Keith, that you would want me to share with these guys that I'm talking today? He said, you know what, Doug, it hasn't changed. Tell people that the way to build vitality into their lives is to maintain an active interest. I said, do you still ride your bike? And he said, no, I broke my hip a couple years falling off, and they won't let me ride it anymore. 91 years old. The vitality in this man's voice yesterday. Why does your vitality journey matter? Here's the reason why. It's taken me a lot of years to figure this out. The reason why. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. I listened to a friend speak about 20 years ago. His name was Ian Percy. He wrote a book called Going Deep. And he said that 90% of all people, 90% of all people live lives in quiet desperation. Whew. And you know what? That hit pretty close to home, because there were times in my life I knew I was part of that 90%. We're so busy wearing that mask we want the world to see that oftentimes we're hiding something. We're hiding the difficulty. We're hiding the challenges. We're hiding 90%. My grandfather used to have lots of little quips. One of his favorite one, I didn't listen to as closely as I should have, he would say, take care of the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. You've heard that before? Another one he'd say was, embrace your vitality, work on it, take care of it, nurture it, and your happiness will take care of itself. You see, one of the problems I think that we have is we are oftentimes looking to do the things that make us happy. We are an over-medicated, over-prescribed, over-vaccinated, over-alcoholed, over and over and over. The reason why is we're trying to find a level of happiness. And I'm telling you today, I want you to start to begin to search for what is it that makes you feel vital. Because Grandpa would say, embrace your vitality and your happiness will take care of itself. It's a byproduct of being vital. Researchers have determined that 50% of our happiness happened the day that you were born. And I know I didn't get all 50 points. My mom was a cigarette smoker. In fact, that's what doctors recommended back in the 50s to control your weight. They recommended that you start smoking cigarettes to control your weight. I have a feeling that affected my happiness level of the day that I was born. The second thing we look at is the 10%. 10% of our lives, our happiness level, 10% our job, our status, the home that we live in, the dollars that we make, only 10%, despite the fact that you may want to do, all you're going to get in terms of happiness points are 10%. When you add the 50% and 10%, we got 60%. The fact is, the reason why 90% of us are walking around with lives that are not as happy as they could be, and we're looking for ways to bump it up by using external forces, is the fact that we need to begin to focus on the 40. You see, the 40% are the things of intentional living. The fact that you guys are all here today, man, flew in from Peru. Who's in from Peru? Peru, all over the country. You came here. Do you realize how important this step is in terms of your vitality journey? This is cool. And those of you that are here to listen to all the speakers, how cool is that? In service to others. One of the best ways you can build your vitality is being in service to others. We've been having kids from inner city Hartford come out to my home for the last 15 years, and it's amazing. I've got my oldest daughter right now is in Africa doing missions work, and I wonder sometimes, she's not chasing dollars because of a certain job, she's chasing her vitality and making a difference. And I wish you could see this kid. She just beams life, she just beams vitality in terms of all that she does. Focus on the 40. We become so busy at focusing on the 10. Focus on the 40. That's where the great changes in your life are going to be made. What intentional changes can you make? For me, one of the things that I found my vitality in is doing exercise. And if you're not doing exercise, you've been given 658 beautiful muscles. Start moving as many of them as you possibly can. One of the reasons why, the older you get, the more your dopamine levels drop off in your brain. And one of the things that we've associated happiness with and vitality is keeping dopamine levels up. And I can tell you, after doing a 7-hour swim, my dopamine levels are feeling good. All right. For those of you that have been here all week, there's a good chance the person you are today is not the same person that arrived just 1 week ago. You have become more vital. Remember, as you forge ahead on your journey, some of the lessons that I've tried to share with you today. You may not enjoy every step of your vitality journey. Let that be okay. One of the things that happened to me in January, I went to the YMCA up the street to do a 7-hour swim. 7 hours in a swimming pool is not a lot of fun. Sometimes on your journey, things are difficult. Sometimes it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's just plain ugly. And one of the things that I have as a saying is embrace the ugly. Forge ahead despite how difficult it might be. Second thing is, when you're knocked down like Julie Moss, listen to that little voice, that seed of greatness within you that says, get up, you can do it. Just like that cop was trying to get me to the finish line, didn't understand where I had come from. It's not fair to expect others to fully understand your journey. Let that be okay. Select the right pace. Chase the right things. It's your life. It's your race. Do it at your pace. It's not a question whether there will be times that you don't feel smart enough, pretty enough, young enough, fast enough. There isn't any doubt in my mind that there will be times where you feel that. The question is, when that happens, what will you do? Go for it anyway. Remind yourself, like my friend Keith Albright reminded me, you are good enough. You're better than good enough. You're awesome. And lastly, focus on the 40. When your life isn't working, and you're thinking, why is it just me, man? Well, everybody else around me seems to be happy. Focus on the 40. Focus on the intentional actions in your life, whether that be what you put in your body, the conversations you put in your brain, the people you hang around with. Focus on the 40. Focus on your vitality, and your happiness will be soon to follow. Thank you.